Hi everybody, my name is Jo and I love to read. Today we're going to be doing a reading vlog. Now I will have a quick content warning for the cover throughout this vlog. It has a photograph of a real human skeleton on it, and that is because we are reading The First World War, an illustrated history by A.J.P. Taylor. I picked this up secondhand from a book fair and I've been so excited to read this book. I've been super keen. I was chomping at the bit through my last book even though I was still really enjoying it. I'm really excited to learn more, particularly about how the war happened. A little bit about how it ended, of course, and the effects throughout, but I am really interested to see how it started because World War One is something that hasn't stuck in my mind about how it started in the way that the Second World War did. And to be honest, I didn't really pay a lot of attention in high school during history because I was just really mad at humans for going to war. I'm fascinated now by the why and the how, who started it, why, and a lot of these conflicts go back years and years and years that have been almost, not like going since the dawn of time, but almost it feels like in those ways. Because when I was looking a bit more into World War II, that made me fascinated what happened in World War One, because I learnt that World War II happened almost because World War One happened. So far I have learnt, and I did Google as well to see if there was an easy answer for it, and there is. I could do more Googling, but I'm actually interested in reading a book. And my dad's always said to me, well, wasn't it just that Archduke Franz Ferdinand was murdered? Which, yes, it was, but there are still so many questions about why. And I like that this book goes into a bit more detail about that, where they explain that he was assassinated in Bosnia, but he was only in Bosnia because he married a woman who was beneath him in standing, and she was never allowed to be with him in official capacities despite how much he loved her and that they had children together. He had to sign away the children's claim to the throne. He was the heir of the Habsburgs monarchy, which I still am not sure which countries they were ruling. They were massive power. Not being able to take her to any official capacity as his wife, there was a loophole in all this, in that he was also a military man. He could take her to certain military events and have her stand beside him as his wife. And so on their wedding anniversary, they decided to go and inspect the army in Bosnia. The thing that seems to be missing in here doesn't actually explain why the Habsburgs annexed into Bosnia and Herzegovina in the first place. I do have to Google that and find out why. They didn't just assassinate him to assassinate him because he was there. It was because their country had been annexed, which means that it was forcibly taken over. Of course they're pissed off that their country has been taken over. Why did the Habsburgs do that? Do they have some archaic claim to the throne, or were they just wanting to take over because they could? Also, something cool is that someone else has already highlighted parts. They haven't written in it, which would be top tier cool annotations, but someone else has highlighted stuff too. So they're the orange and I am the purple. Talk to you guys when I have another update. Hey guys, we're at my husband's cousin's place. I don't know, I'm so far over now if I do that, whereas that wasn't too far. I have been a bit stalled in reading because I'm still doing a lot of research into why it happened. The question that is not answered for me in the book is why Austria-Hungary decided to annex Bosnia Herzegovina, and I want to understand why they did that, because to me that is so important, because that created lots of anger, especially among the young people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I've been researching on the Britannica website mainly because it has the best comprehensive stuff and I trust it. Bosnia and Herzegovina have a really long history of being occupied, even back in the Roman days, in the Byzantine Empire, in the Ottoman Empire. Only been a really small time where they have ruled themselves. Now this is testing my memory, because this is stuff that I've read recently. In the late 1800s, upper class Muslims that were landowners, and then there was peasant Christians, and the conditions were not really good for the Christian peasants. They got the support of the neighbouring Serbia and
something to start a war against the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, so that they could hopefully get some independence and improve some conditions. And the Serbs and the other M country got the support of Russia, but ultimately they got defeated. What they wanted didn't go through. They had one treaty which wasn't super fair, apparently. So then they created another one at the Congress of Berlin in 1878. They decided that Bosnia and Herzegovina would be administered, which is basically ruled by Austria-Hungary, which at the time was run by the Habsburgs. Unfortunately, this didn't improve any relationships between the peasants and landowners. So yes. The peasants and the working class were not happy with this, obviously, because they've just fought a war trying to get better living conditions for themselves. There started to be sparks of, I don't know if a revolution is the right way to say it, particularly among the young people. They were aligning themselves with Serbia. They were starting to think of themselves as Serbs or Croats. What I've got to read into now is that there was this organization called the Young Turks, which played into something, but I can't remember now because my brain is mush. That's what it was. Because of whatever happened with the Young Turks, which was some kind of uprising, I believe, Austria-Hungary decided that they were going to fully annex Bosnia and Herzegovina. It led to even worse feelings between them when Franz decided to visit the Archduke. There were organisations, particularly with young people, who were training to kill and bring down the Habsburg monarchy. The only other thing that I'm also curious about as well, but it probably won't impact me continuing on with the book, is understanding how Bosnia and Herzegovina were tied together as a country, because that's literally what the country is called. It's got the two names, and they were separate nations. And I've done some reading into that, but a lot of the Britannica website focuses on Bosnia. There's going to be a lot of face cutting out here to protect you. A lot of it is focused on Bosnia, and it mentions Herzegovina sometimes, but it doesn't mention when they were linked together, not as much detail or as clear as what I want it to.
Hey guys, just snagging a quick sec to update you guys because I don't know when else I will get the chance. It's Christmas Eve. I have finally finished researching what I need to. I'm reading the book again, which is super fun, super nice. So the assassination was the catalyst. Austria-Hungary sent some kind of harsh humiliatory ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia agreed to it with just enough counter proposals to keep some humility. Austria-Hungary still did not agree to this and decided that they said that they were going to war. Apparently, this was said a lot back in those days, and it didn't often amount to anything, but in this case, it has, or it did, and I'm not entirely sure why. I don't think even historians have any proof as to why. They've speculated, but they don't have any proper hard proof to say why people decided to go ahead with this instead of backing down like they have before when threats were made. I'm just at the start where it's starting to talk about Russia, because Russia is supposed to be the protector of all of the Balkan Slavs. Interesting, delving further into it, but I'm very happy to be actually reading the book now. Hey guys, back home now. Unfortunately, I haven't made a lot of progress. I have learnt a bit more about when the bigger countries started to get involved, that Russia was sort of pressured but also needed to for their own survival, got involved in the war, and then Germany did because Austria-Hungary asked them to, and then a lot of other allies like Great Britain and Italy got involved on the Russian-Serbia side. Unfortunately, also, I'm getting bored. I wondered whether this was going to happen, but when I felt the book calling to me, I was like, I gotta read this and give it a go. I'm going to give it a night. I'll see how I feel tomorrow. If I'm still not keen to read it tomorrow, then I think I'm going to DNF it. Don't know whether I want to keep it or not, because I have written in and tabbed a lot of the initial pages. This is the first proper page. I've written so much in it, and then even more. So I was really having a good time in the initial pages, but I'm just bored now that we're in the nitty-gritty of specific battles and who did what and where and when. I was having a bit of a Google about this, and I don't know if this is official, but a person on Reddit said that there is a difference between military history and war history. Military history being specific battles and strategies, and war history being everything else. So the why and some details on battles, but not as much in the nitty-gritty of them, the effects of war, after, before, all that kind of thing. Wonder whether I might be someone who is more interested in that kind of history than military. And I want to try and give this book a little bit more time to see if it goes into a bit of that as well, but I just don't think it will because, oh sorry, that's maps. I was using that as a contents page. I was like, that's contents, but I didn't just notice that that says maps on it. There is no contents page. There's one that says 1914. I'm just having a flick to see. It was like 1916. Yeah, I don't know. I might give it, when I was reading that maps page and thinking it was contents, it just has a list of all the different battles. Now I kind of feel a bit like, I kind of already want to stop reading this one now. So I might have a little bit of a Google as well and see if I can try and find a better recommendation of a book about the First World War. Be one that goes into a lot more detail as to the why, all the stuff that I've been Googling, which is like hilarious to me that I've been Googling a lot of stuff and now I'm finally in the book and I'm bored. Hey guys, so I gave it another shot and I actually did get through the battle part and started to get to a part where it was talking about how the real failure was in leadership, which was blind and unenterprising. And doing research into what other book I might want to read last night, I was learning that there used to be this prevailing opinion for World War I that the leaders of the armies were really incompetent. But since they've done more research, now that has been debunked. And the theory is, the myth or the theory that they were incompetent is famously known as the lions led by donkeys. I was feeling very attached to this because, again, of all my annotations, but I don't know if I can now trust any commentary that he makes because it is not his fault as the author, but it's the prevailing opinion of the time. And this book was published a fairly long time ago. I'm looking at a couple of options. I did do a post on Reddit asking for some recommendations, but I don't like a lot of them because, not that they wouldn't be good books to read, but it's more books that focus on a particular part of the war. So it's more things like The Lost War Horses of Cairo. So it's about the war, definitely, but it's not an overview of what happened and the effects. It's sort of a little side section. So this other person recommended a book about how plastic surgery was basically invented or developed more in the war because of the disfigurements that the soldiers went through. And so they had to use a lot more plastic surgery then. I have been given a recommendation that I probably won't read, but I felt like talking about it, and that was The Sleepwalkers, How Europe Went to War in 1914 by Christopher Clark. And it talks about how the war started in a lot of detail, which, as I've said, I'm interested in, but it's 736 pages, so I don't know whether I want to read about it in that much detail. I was also recommended this other one, which is A World Undone, The Story of the Great War, 1914 to 1918 by G.J. Mayer, but it apparently also talks about this theory of all this myth of the leaders being incompetent, so I'm not really interested in that. The person on Reddit who talked about how it was not the best history book, even though it seems like perfect in every other way because it has a lot of detail into the battles, which I'm not as interested in, but it's got sandwiched in between those battles little chapters on what happened otherwise surrounding the war, which sounds really good. So I've messaged this person on Reddit and I've said, what book would you recommend? I'm looking for an overhaul history that's more up to date and doesn't have that incompetent leaders myth. So I'll let you guys know if I end up deciding on a book. But I think it's pretty safe to say that even though I'm attached to this one, because of my annotations, I am going to stop reading it because I'm just questioning now whether anything is, well, not anything. I know a lot of things are written true, but the commentary, I'm questioning whether that's true. So, which it's been proven not. Yeah.